Okay. So yeah, today I'm going to talk about MBS BIM Toolkit in around 45 minutes or so in terms of duration. We'll have a little introduction, then start looking at a recap of the UK government's Level 2 BIM strategy. Then look at the digital plan of work itself, and then finish with a little bit on verification. So at MBS, we're wholly owned by the Royal Institute of British Architects. So we produce construction knowledge, products and services to the entire construction industry, engineers, cost consultants, clients, contractors, but we've got one shareholder, which is the Royal Institute of British Architects. So at the end of each year, all of our profits are passed up to the RIBA. NBS stands for National Building Specification, and we are probably best known for our specification products. What you can see on the screen here is a MBS specification product, MBS Create, where the user is specifying a stone block. And what you can see is you get specification clauses. You're not starting with a blank sheet of paper, and technical guidance, suggested values, and also technical information from manufacturers there. My own background, I've been with NBS for 15 years now. I originally studied civil structural engineering at Durham University. I did a PhD in the digital modelling of reinforced concrete structures, which I imagine is sort of building information modelling in its own way. I joined MBS as a software developer, and now I'm a director looking at our specification and process products and solutions, and talking to key customers and working out how we can continue to improve our existing products and develop new products for the UK construction industry. Just to reflect on other industries before looking at construction, we've got a digital revolution that's happening around the world. Even looking back, say 20 years, look at the music industry. It used to be LPs, sort of 33s and 45s, and now this information is commonly delivered from the World Wide Web. MP3s, you don't have to buy the whole album, you can buy the songs you like. Social interaction, put them into whichever playlists you like. You've got the same thing happening in publishing industry with books. It's no longer having to just rely on physical items, but the fantastic things like the Kindle and the iPad, and movies as well. You don't have to go to the Blockbuster video store or HMV and buy a video cassette that you put in your video recorder. You get them on demand now over Netflix or Sky, etc. And we're seeing that same digital revolution happening now in the construction industry, whether that's in design or construction or operation. But yeah, when I was at university at the start of the 90s, I was taught to draw using a drawing board. If I was writing a CV, you'd be using a typewriter. And things like spreadsheet applications, word processors, the internet, modeling tools now has just completely revolutionized how many people in the industry are now working. Here's just some reflective, some images just to reflect back on. I guess this was quite a few years ago, but here's a huge paper drawing with people there with a set square, and it's so big they're actually lying on it. This was one way that manufacturers used to provide added value to those that would ultimately specify them. So this is a drawing stencil from a bathroom manufacturer, and you can see it's got their sort of 1 to 100, 1 to 50 geometric layouts, which you could draw around and put on your drawings. This was the first promotional video from MBS, NBS Specification Manager in the 90s. And you can see there's not a computer in sight. It's big drawing boards and people working with pen and paper. And in this promotional video, this was the first computer that came into this particular office, probably before internet was commonly used, and you're surrounded there by the books and the different standards, regulations, manufacturer literature on the bookshelves. And that's familiar for anyone that's worked in construction industry over the last 5, 10 plus years. The new generation that's coming through, it's digital first. And you look at this, I don't know how old this girl is, 2 or 3 years old. She's reading a paper magazine, and what she's trying to do there with her fingers is make the image a little bit bigger. And clearly you can't do that, but her brain's programmed now for the iPad generation, where you get the information you want at your fingertips. And it's not a case of you print it out in one format and it stays in that format forever. Here's examples of a huge organization, Kodak, incredible 150,000 employees at the end of the 80s, and an organization of this size couldn't keep up with the pace of digital change, and they've gone. And it's not just organizations such as Kodak that's suffered from this digital revolution, but this shows the risk of not changing as opposed to the opportunities that are presented to the companies that embrace digital processes, digital technology. So the government sort of recognized this digital revolution back, I don't know, 2008, 2009, and put together a UK construction strategy that at its heart was building information modelling. So trying to really upskill the UK industry in their sort of use of digital technology, digital process. Why were they wanting to do this? More recently, this Construction 2025 strategy came out, but it's to build for cheaper, operate for cheaper, more cheaply, deliver faster, be able to have the information at your fingertips to make decisions that help reduce the environmental impact, and also to really, I think this one bottom right, improve exports is such a crucial one that we can't afford to have the UK industry standing still and watch the rest of the world get better and better. We want to try and lead that so we can export more professional services overseas, we can export more construction products overseas. Really try and get the UK in a place of world leadership when it comes to digital construction. And so a lot of the thinking was done in 2009, 2010. The construction strategy came out in 2011. This is one of Dave Phillips' slides from BIM Task Group. And they've gone from having nothing really in 2011 to 2015 having a set of standards and tools which are maybe considered across the world to be sort of real, sort of world-class market leading. So things like, just looking at this timeline, the PAS 1192 workflow, which a previous webinar has been was presented by Mervyn Richards. You've got PAS 1192 Part 3, the Kobe data standards, won a FIATech Global Award, and then this year has been the sort of completing that jigsaw puzzle really with the work on the digital classification system and the digital plan of works, which we're going to look at over the next 30-35 minutes. So let's look at this set of what does level 2 BIM mean. It's this collection of standards and tools which are completely free to the industry. So a standard process for the capital delivery phase, a standard, publicly available standard on operational phase. You've got BIM protocols, you've got guidance documents on how to provide a soft landing for the client when you hand over the asset. You've got the data structure, which is Kobe, far more than a simple Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, but the actual data structure behind there. But at the start of the last year, the missing bits of the jigsaw were classification and digital plan of work. So this is an illustration from Rob Manning here, and it's just demonstrating that at the centre you've got information management. You've got those important supporting standards and tools that wrap around it, classification, digital plan of works, which then by taking that process away and standardizing it allows you to use those digital technologies to focus on real added value, whether that's cost modeling, digital surveys, component libraries, improving health and safety, digital procurement, etc. So let's focus more on these two. Again, this is a slide from Dave Philp, just again reflecting on the government strategy. Here's your traditional process. and what you can see is a picture of some sort is drawn, and then you hope you get the asset that you want out the end. And we've got to get away from you're just drawing geometry on a bit of paper and words on a bit of paper to actually having proper digital information. How much information is provided at the various stages? You don't want too much. You definitely don't want too little, because you need the information to answer the queries you have at the various stages. You want what's just right, and that's what the digital plan of work allows clients to define. I quite like this, the sort of Goldilocks principle, as Dave's slide illustrates. Where life lives on Earth, there's the sun, there's Earth, because the conditions are just right. You can't do it here, it's too hot, it's just cold. It's the sort of Goldilocks principle of digital information, where you got the information you need at the right time. So let's have a look at digital plan of work. Before we start, this project was commissioned by the government, Department of Business Innovation and Skills, through BIM Task Group, and it was funded through the prototype period, through the 6-month initial development period, 100% funding by Innovate UK. It was a competitive process, which NBS put together a team that won that competition to deliver the prototype. And on that team, we had what we believed was a team of real experts from the UK on the construction industry side, like multidisciplinary design and design management for buildings, BDP, the equivalent for infrastructure, McDonald, build off-site, construction, cost consultancy, Lang O'Rourke, and then more on the technology side, but obviously with the construction expertise, you got BIM Academy, and then also on cloud computing, Microsoft, Newcastle University. And throughout every stage of the project, every month, through the funding period, we had fantastic support from the major institutions. They're looking across their CIOB, Association of Project Managers, FM, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors actually came onto the core team for the last couple of months of the project as well. So what we're going to look at is the BIM Toolkit, but basically around the level 2 BIM PAS 1192 workflow. So not reinventing the wheel, going off in different directions, but sticking 100% to this level 2 BIM process, a complete sort of wrapper of standards and tools. And to illustrate this, we just have a little look at the concept diagram from Mervyn Richards' PAS 1192 document. So what you've got here is the various stages of a construction project, where you start at the strategy stage, looking at assessment and need, and then you work around here through the unified plan of work stages. So you put together your procurement package and put together the team, and then that team, depending on procurement, it may be more than one team, but maybe a consultant-led team, then a contractor-led team, goes through the brief, the design stages, the builds, and ultimately hand over into operation. So if you haven't read PAS 1192 Part 2, I'd say that's essential. That's the place to start when you want to know what level 2 BIM is all about. So let's look at this assessment and need phase. This is where the client, the employer, determines what information they need with respect to plain language questions. They put together employers' information requirements, use the language of the PAS, and align these to the various project stages. So you could be a strategy or a brief stage here, and that forms part of the wider initial tender documentation. So what we'll look now, let's just explain how that works through the BIM Toolkit itself. Free to use tool, that's the URL at the top, or you can just search in Google for BIM Toolkit. And everything here is completely free. So what you can see here, I've got a list of projects I'm working on. You can click on a project. The data model here has information at a project level. So this is the project, and it's got a reference, a title, location, modeling units, and then it has information at a stage level. So going back to those past 1192 work stages, you've got information at stage 0, strategy, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And ideally you follow this process all the way through, but you can always come in at the design stages and put together a design responsibility matrix. But the functionality is there to go right the way through the project. So at stage 0, you might have a stage deadline and also a target date of when you want construction to start, a target date for what the cost is. Then you've got roles. So there may be a role of civil engineer at stage 1, and then those roles are modelled against the organisation that fulfills the role. You might have a different architect at stage 2 to what you have at stage 4, a concept architect and a more technical architect. But for each stage you can model the roles that you need. Now if you go back to that strategy stage, putting together employers' information requirements, this is going out to tender, so you don't know who the architect's going to be, who the civil engineer is going to be, whoever, but that's ready to get complete later in the project. But what you do know is what tasks are required to provide the information to answer those plain language questions. And BIM Toolkit's got a set of these template tasks which you can modify and make right for your clients or your projects if you are a client. So you can sit at the start of the project and say, these are our information requirements. We need to know, is the project feasible? That's the plain language question. The feasibility study is the information requirement, and we want it at stage 1 of the project lead. And you can go through each of these stages, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and document what your requirements are. You can add your own. So in this example here, I've clicked Add Task, and I've got a requirement for a community consultation set of documents. So I put the task in, put some notes in, and say that's going to be the responsibility of the project lead. But once you've put together this sort of framework of information requirements, you can reuse it and continue to improve it on future jobs. And that information has got 3 or 4 different templates which you can use when starting off a new project. We've got one based on the tasks in the RIBA Plan of Work 2013. We've got a similar one for buildings, but with the CIC terminology, so architectural design instead of an architect, for example. And then we've worked with Highways England and also Environment Agency to provide more infrastructure-based template tasks as well. And what you can do here is export the information out. So this is a web tool, so you can put it all together without installing any software. But at the point where you want to maybe issue things out of the office, you can click the export button, and that's information that can be manipulated and put together in a more Microsoft Word document, maybe type format as your employer's information requirements document. But in addition, you can export it to the BS 1192 part 4 format, which is the COBie data structure, where computers can work with it, or you can import it into a different software package. So this principle applies throughout, where you put the information in online digitally into a standard template, and then you can export that into a format which you can make look professional to go out of your office as a PDF, and you can export it into a data structure which computers can work with. So here's an example of the export, just going to a nice simple Microsoft Excel, which you can quickly pop into a Microsoft Word document with your header and footer on and issue out as your employer's information requirements. You then come round to maybe the next stage of this past 1192 process, where the bidders are going to respond to the employer's information requirements with their capabilities. And they can populate that using the BIM Toolkit by importing that into their private area. So each of the bidders would have their own log on, their own area that nobody else can see, and they could import that data output into their area and add their project team. So this is the private area of this particular participant, who's one of the bidders on the project. They've created a new project based on those employers' information requirements, and they can go through saying, okay, if we win this project, we'll have SJH Consult as the project lead at stage 1. And you can maybe add tasks where you can add greater value, add descriptions of how you do it, or maybe say where things are not particularly possible, but that's in a standard format, which then again can be exported into Excel or a Word document as part of the BIM execution plan, which is pre-contract, and also in that digital format so computers can read it. So it's creating that standard digital process around the process and standards which are part of that level 2 BIM wrapper. And what's quite interesting at this stage is I've been talking about building information modeling for 25 minutes and we haven't looked at a 3D model once. And that's one of the key things to remember when it comes to building information modeling. On a project, it's not a case of let's buy a 3D software package and start doing some 3D models. It's about the process and it's about documents as well as modeled information. And if you read the 1192 set of standards and processes, that's very clear. So let's move around a little bit further into the production stage, so where maybe you are starting to do design work, the collaborative team has been assembled. The digital plan of work does the job of defining what information is needed when and who's going to provide it. It doesn't go out and write your specifications, do your cost plans, do your 3D modeling. This is here basically for the manager, whether this project lead, design lead, to define what needs to be done, and then the project team goes away and does that. And it should all feed back to those original demands from the client, really. So we've moved all the way through now to stage 3. And in this little screenshot I can show here is we're not just looking at tasks anymore, which are those sort of big chunky information deliverables and documents and photographs, presentations, but we are starting to look at the modeling now. So you're looking at the deliverables for stage 3 where the design's getting quite developed now. And what you can see here is that this things such as, say, partitions or heating systems or retaining walls, excavation systems, they've got a classification, they've got a responsibility. And we're also introducing now something called level of detail and level of information. So it's very clear which organisation is in charge of designing, modelling the retaining walls, but you can also see how much information is expected, whether that's detailed information, sort of geometry, or the information associated with that, which is the sort of more what you'd consider property sets and associated documents. Because this is a digital tool, you can click on these buttons. So clicking on the number 3 here brings up a nice little pop-up which shows what LOD actually means. And there's a place where you can add notes and things. So there's real clarity there at the start of the stage. Who's responsible for what and what sort of information is going to be provided at the end of that stage or during that stage. LOD and LOI split. Level of detail is what you can see geometrically. Level of information is the information specific to that item. So for a retaining wall, it's things like the applied load and the design supervision, geotechnical design, etc. And you can see you can actually vary these through the little button here at the top. Looking at another example, I want to add a new deliverable, say a boiler. You can search for boiler. We've got about 5,700 templates in the BIM toolkit. It was as much of a project about developing technical content as it was software functionality. So I click the boiler. I then say which organisation from the pick lists, don't have to retype the organisation name, is responsible. Add some notes, and then pick the LOD and LOI. At stage 3, it would be typical that it's LOD 3, LOI 3. But that's not always the case. You might be working for a repeat client that uses the same boiler on every project. So you know LOI 6, even though you're at stage 2 or 3. You can see that level LOD2, it's concept design, which considers things like operation and maintenance. Is there enough space to operate and maintain the boiler, even though we don't know the precise geometry yet? As we jump to LOD5, which is more real sort of technical design construction, you see the LOD has more geometry there. Same on the level of information here. Typical for concept design, you'd maybe just get a description of design intent for a boiler. As you drop to LOI 6, it's the standard handover properties here that are defined in the COBE data schema. Just to show a few additional examples, deliberately haven't picked architecture examples here because it's really key to the message. It isn't just about architects. NBS, although owned by the Royal Institute of British Architects, is construction information for the whole industry. So we've looked at retaining walls, we looked at boilers, we've got LODs, LOIs for, we've got steel stair systems, pile cap systems, steel framing, what's that, some roof framing system, concrete underpinning. We've got lots on infrastructure, bridge decks, scum removal, highways. So a huge amount of technical content that's been written specifically for the UK market in partnership with our core team members, BDP and Mott MacDonald. We mentioned earlier that RICS, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, joined the core team, and they did work mapping the new classification system at the level of systems, so things like heating systems or sealing systems or barrier systems or what have you, to the new rule of measurement 1/NRM3 codes. So you can just, in the toolkit, click this button here and you'll see the mappings to NRM. It should help with cost consultants speaking the same language, and obviously lots of sort of legacy information that's in cost consultants' databases to maybe standard form of cost analysis structure. You see there the little hyperlinks. If you are a member of iServe, you can jump across and see the guidance from NRM, or you can see benchmarking data from BCIS there. What this shows is that there's items at different levels of the classification tables. So I've searched for classroom, and you can see you've got classroom seats from the product table, classroom furniture systems from systems, and then things like secondary classrooms, infant classrooms, home economics classrooms from the spaces table. So various classification tables leading into these templates. So there I've said I'm just interested in items from the space table. There's primary classrooms. Principles behind the classification. Number one, it's based on the ISO 12066 Part 2 International Framework for Digital Classifications, and is pulling together classifications in consultation with industry across the different sectors, so buildings and infrastructure. And there's tables for different sizes of items that you might want to classify. So large clients might want to classify entire complexes. That could be things like a road network or a university complex. You may want to classify entities. That could be a tunnel or a road or a bridge or a building. You may want to classify the activities that happen inside those entities. So inside that particular building, there may be dining areas, cooking areas, dancing areas, teaching areas. And then as you get to greater granularity, maybe getting into more the developed design stage or asset management stage, it's things like classification for spaces, elements, systems and products. So you think of a bridge element. It might have a deck system and then have the sort of concrete product as part of that system, or a barrier system with the fittings as the product, or for architecture, a ceiling system with the ceiling tiles as the product. So the new Uniclass 2015's got classification tables at every level, and within the BIM toolkit, this is all freely available. You can browse it, you can filter it, you can download it in Microsoft Excel format, and it's there at your fingertips when putting together digital plans of work too. So in this example here, I've searched for foundation in the systems table, so SS for systems table, and you've got a list of different foundation systems that pop on the screen there. If I wanted to download the entire systems table, I can click there, get Microsoft Excel file that includes the NRM mappings. What we've done in the search engines included synonym technology. So you no longer have to argue about, is it called intruder detection system or burglar alarm system. You search for burglar alarm and you find intruder detection system. So in many examples of this, you may search for living roof and find green roof, or search for McAdam and get asphalt concrete, or galvanized with a Z or galvanized with an S. So if you use this search technology right at the top of the page, front and center, you should quite easily be able to find the content you're looking for without necessarily having to be an expert in classification. I think that's really important. If you look at something like eBay or Amazon, everything's classified extremely well so that you can filter and find things quickly. But if you're uploading something to eBay, you don't have to be an expert at the classification system. You type in what you want to sell, laptop, and the digital technology is there to sort of classify it in the background as the most likely suggestion. And that's what we're trying to do at MBS, to sort of push classification into the background so it can enable grouping and nice filter functionality, but really work with sort of plain language terms, like I'm after an intruder alarm detection system. And if you'd memorize that, it's SS7540. 7540, yeah, great for the classification experts, but let's keep things simple with great search technology. At the end of that design stage, this particular stage, stage 3, you'll have had the requirements of what's been asked for, and that's where the real sort of complexity is in terms of using 3D modeling packages, advanced specification or cost modeling packages to provide a response to what's been asked for. And by having this in a digital format, it makes it more easy for the client to actually check that they've got the information that it's been asked for. Sort of big box of paper, whether that's through the stages of a plan of work or at the handover stage when you want digital information to go into an asset management system. And I guess that's the final stage here, where you've got digital information. So ultimately what you want is information that a repeat client can again and again and again push into their asset management system, so you can query a 3D model through geometry, through a visual interface, be able to click on an object and find out what its ID, what its parent space is, level, manufacturer, model. So for that particular boiler, you know it's in the plant room on the ground floor. It's a Bosch boiler, Bosch 1000, with an expected life of 10 years if you maintain it at the following level. And if that information is all provided in paper in a series of 3 huge boxes, you've got a big job when you come to operate this asset. If you can provide it digitally, you're starting to put the mechanisms in place where it's at the client's fingertips. Let's have a little look at some of the verification functionality that we've developed with our partners BIM Academy. This uses the XBIM open source technology, and we'll just have a little look at some of the power behind that. There's others working on this, such as 4 projects also in the Northeast. It's a real sort of collaborative effort to develop this technology, which is community-based and royalty-free. So all based around building smart IFC technologies. There's not a big software vendor here that's got exclusivity. So this isn't a solution from Trimble or from Autodesk or from Graphisoft. This is there for the community and works absolutely 100% from building smart IFC technology. This is the sort of concept diagram that you define what you want in the level 2 BIM data structure, building smart, Kobe IFC. Somebody goes away and develops that. Then it's submitted for checking. You check it's the right format, and then you start to digitally verify that. So let's look at that first stage. It's the plan of work itself, where you define the requirements. So you come into this free tool, and you can say at stage 1, at stage 2, I want information about how much space I've got for sleeping areas or for dining areas. You could go into stage 6 as a client and say, I'd like to have handover information for the following items. You could have a catch-all statement at the start saying all service engineering equipment will have LOI 6 at handover. It's in the digital plan of work, or you can go and have specific items. Again, if you're a repeat client, you know exactly what your information needs are. You can see LOI 6 here, what's the warranty, the model number, the manufacturer. And that information gets exported into Kobe or IFC format. And someone goes away and does the design using the software package of their choice. So I've received that requirement file that we need a design that's got dining areas and sleeping areas. I've sort of combined a sort of concept design here with spaces, with some of the specific stuff showing actually radiators or convectors, but it's just to show the principles off. Obviously, you wouldn't have much detailed information at concept stage, but just to show the principles here, we've got spaces defined and classified. We've also got assets defined and classified. This isn't a commercial package at the moment, but you can export from there into the standard format. So here you can see that there was a requirement for the fan convectors level of information 6. In my design, I've got, let's go back a stage, I've got 3 rooms classified by what their room types are, and there's 6 different instances of fan convectors. This example has things that the client probably isn't interested in, like a stone wall, but again, just to put the principle across here, you can see the fan convectors there. We've developed a tool where you can actually check this in IFC. So there's a Windows application tool and a web application tool. So you can analyze, okay, in this room, there's 2 convectors, and there's the classification of the room and the classification and properties of the asset types that are in there. So there you go, there's the Biddle fan convector with the properties on the right. And then there's also verification functionality. That's developed at a sort of private beta stage at the moment. Currently working with industry, sort of tighten up the instructions and give guidance on different software packages. How would you do this if you used Revit? How would you use this if you did AutoCAD? And you can see here you're getting sort of traffic light reports showing where things have passed, where all the information exists, and where information is missing. So just a nice little user-friendly Microsoft Excel report that's generated by comparing 2 Kobe spreadsheets or by comparing IFC. You can see there, not all the information is passed for the fan convectors, and you can see that the warranty information hasn't been provided there. Because this is the standard format, if you're interested in asset databases, you can write one software routine which sucks this information out of the standard format and puts it into the bespoke asset management software that you use. So there's still a lot of work to take place in terms of verification and continue to improve this area of the software. And we've got great support in terms of this XBIM initiative from BIM Academy Northumbria University. Got the likes of AEC3 for projects, NPS, METS architects, e-documents engaging with this open source project. It's fantastic to see the community get behind it. All designed and built on IFC. And if anyone's interested in developing that further, please contact both either BIM Academy but also ourselves here at MBS through our sort of private beta testing of the verification functionality. So I was going to a little summary slide, and then I'll just go quickly to the web browser before I open up to some questions. But what we've seen here is, and what you've seen in the previous webinars from the likes of Dave Philbin and Kemp, is there's a very clear central strategy for information procurement, the level 2 set of standards and tools. And they're completely free for the UK industry for level 2 BIM. Defining who's doing what and when, those digital information requirements can all be done by following the standards that are freely downloadable and using the BIM Toolkit, which is a free web tool. And what we've also saw is some of the progress, the direction on the verification of well-structured open data. What's possible if you provide digital information, not pages and pages of paper. This is the website again, BIM Toolkit, and I'll just pop it up on the screen so people can see it. Search for BIM Toolkit. You'll see top search results are both 2 or 3 MBS plus some the news stories in the media. But there it is, toolkit.thembs.com. If we look at the top, you can use the search engine. You can browse to some of the exemplar LODs and LOIs, search them, look at the classifications. There's also a big support area which is split into either the technical content principles, what we've seen today. This one here, an introduction to the BIM Toolkit, is essentially the story I've told through this presentation. Level 2 BIM package is a fantastic article from Rob Manning, who's been the sort of leader on the government side, employees information requirements we talked about today, levels of definition, classification, verification, if you're interested in working with this as a software developer. So a huge amount of information there for free for those that want to know more. And in addition, here's your projects area. So once you sign up for an account, which is free, you can come in and create your projects, look at your existing projects, and it's all there on the web now. So no reason why maybe this afternoon find a little bit of time, go to the website, sign up for an account if you haven't already got one, and create a little test project and have a little play with the content that's there, the functionality that's there, based on the support in the technical support area, what we've got here. The website works on all size devices in terms of information delivery. So you've got there so maybe iPad size, if you're working on a Mac or a PC, but even down to a sort of mobile phone, you haven't got all the functionality in a mobile phone. You wouldn't be expected to write a full digital plan of work, but you can still come here and sort of read the articles on your mobile, or see what information's in a plan of work on the way to a site meeting or design team meeting. So what I'm going to do now, I think I've taken my 45 minutes. We'll just have maybe 5-10 minutes worth of questions, which Andy will host, and we'll aim to finish maybe at about 5 to 2. So over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Steve. Great stuff. Yeah, there's quite a few questions coming in. So whilst during the production phase, large 3D models are being developed, very big files. How do you deal with moving and storing these files, which can take days of a time? Then, because you're moving around large files, how can you be sure everyone is working on the correct version, i.e. version control?
Yeah, well, the good news about that question is it's not the problem of the BIM Toolkit or MBS, but I can maybe give some suggestions based on what I've heard from others in the industry. I think the key thing is that you agree on, so this is a supply chain problem, not a requirements problem. You work on the principles outlined in the PAS 1192 Part 2. I definitely suggest watching Mervyn Richards' presentation from a few weeks ago, And there's nice illustrations there that talk about things such as your work in progress area, your common data environment, how you archive things off, how you get simple things right, like a naming convention, to ensure that if any of the project team want to come in and see what information they can rely on, they know exactly where to find it. And in terms of common data environments, if you're working on big construction projects, you've got leaders in the industry like Autodesk or A-Site or 4 projects that can be there to offer support. If you're working on a small project, maybe an architect doing a house extension, and you want to share information with the service engineer or the client or whoever, there's free services out there like Dropbox or like Google Documents where you can share information in the cloud now for free. So that's beyond the scope of the BIM Toolkit, that particular question, but it's really important when it comes to that entire level 2 BIM package, and PAS 1192 Part 2 is the place to go to read about that.
Okay, no, great. And then it goes on to ask, does the MBS Toolkit give information about which software versions are being used? So as a collaborator, you can make sure you're using the right version with the right patch when you enter into the project.
Well, what we would suggest you did there is put that inside your employer's information requirements document at the start and make sure that's firmed up in the BIM execution plans. So if you look at the technical article here on employer's information requirements, there's a template on the BIM Task Group website, and it's got things such as the software platforms, data exchange formats, how you do your coordinates, what do you understand by level of definition. Are you going to use the BIM Toolkit ones, or maybe halfway through a project agree to continue using the American Institute of Architects? But these are the key questions that need to be explored at strategy brief stage and then firmed up and agreed in the BIM execution plan. So please read the document here on employer's information requirement, this little guidance document. Have a look at the templates and see what information is on BIM Tool Task Group as well.
And someone goes on to, how do you collaborate with other team members when the toolkit is related to an individual's login? Is it for one information manager's role?
Okay, I'm going to answer that in 2, Andy. The first is, how do you do it today? Well, how you do it today is you'd export that information in the BIM Toolkit out, put it into an Excel chart and send it round as a record. So let's say we're at stage 4 now and we're going to the deliverables. I'm the project manager. I'd probably be having a design team meeting, either face-to-face in a meeting room or using web technologies like we're using today. And I'd be going through here. So in this example here, the project leads maybe Fulton Browns or Mark McDonald's. They'd be sitting there saying, okay, let's look at the earthworks. What information have you captured here starting? You document it and you're ready to start the stage, but you're doing that collaboratively, all looking at the screen, and at the end you export it out so everybody's got a record, and a record of that goes in the common data environment. In the next 3 or 4 weeks we're going to introduce new functionality to the BIM Toolkit, which is based around making it a more collaborative environment. So what you can see on the right hand side here is there's a space to add people that can access it. Because it's beta functionality, it's not enabled yet, but you'll be able to go down and say, okay, at Faulkner Brown's, the following 3 people with their email addresses can access this and add comments. They can't change things, they can't add new deliverables or add new tasks. That's the job of the design manager or the project lead. But you can come here and add the people. That'll be going live 3rd week or 4th week of June. Some really nice, exciting collaboration functionality which will allow people not just to see this when they're together as a design team or a construction team, but to then go away and add comments and see that on their mobile phone, see that while they're doing the drawings, while they're doing the specification, through being given a participant log on.
Okay, and And someone asks, is the tool suitable for use on major projects, say £1 billion plus, just as it's suitable for medium-sized projects?
Well, I'd suggest that a £1 billion project isn't really one project. It's a program. It goes off into the next 10, 12 years. That huge program would be split into smaller projects. I'd suggest that the level of the BIM toolkits for the I say a small project, still not a small project. You might have if you were doing a university campus and that was split into 9 or 10 smaller projects, they're still sizable projects. The science building, the accommodation building, the law building, the library. It's at that level, not the level of a whole complex, but the level of what Uniclass 2015 calls an entity. That's where you'd be creating a digital plan of work using the toolkit.
Oh, I see. And someone from Germany asked a question. He said, what do you think about the current situation, having different LOD definition around Europe and the US in particular? In Germany, there is a none at the current stage, which is already starting to be a problem for us.
I think until the last year, the Americans have definitely led the way when it comes to level of detailed guidance. What we try to do in the UK here is align it a little bit more closely with the stages, but also split it in terms of level of detail and level of information. So you think of something like furniture, you may not care about the geometry, you just want to see cuboids around the building, but what's really important is the information. Who is the manufacturer? What's the warranty? What's the expected life? So what we've done in the UK, which I think is critical when modelling the construction industry, is to try and give support in terms of level, aligning it to a typical stage, but also splitting LOD and LOI. Well, what we've also done is really expanded on the scope of content. So if you look here in terms of the definitions, it's 5,700 construction definitions. So you imagine if this was a PDF, it'd probably be 10,000 pages long. So I think there's been a real achievement here in terms of the UK looking at what's happened worldwide, but saying we want to invest and make something really special here. And I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the world looks at those principles and says, yes, that's a good idea. We want to do those things, and it keeps on sort of moving on and progressing around the world.
I mean, talking about the around the world aspect, I mean, we were saying that one of the big issues was trying to drive UK exports. I mean, is any of the toolkit available for people outside of the UK at the present state?
Yeah, we don't block anyone from any country from using it, but you've got to remember it is, like this example here, it's referring to British standards. The terminology is UK terminology, and the classifications built for the UK. So if you look at the web stats, I think we've had people sign on and create projects from around 80 to 90 different countries around the world. But people that do use it from around the world have got to be aware it's been written specifically for UK technical content.
Yeah, sure. And does the MBS toolkit have actual working examples that others can see, which demonstrates LOD and LOI for stages 3 onwards, for example? The working examples, I suppose.
Yeah, we haven't got a sample project yet, but the one that was demonstrated, which we're working on a case study for the websites, this one here, worked with one of our partners, Mark McDonald, and what they did here was take an example building that exists and sort of re-engineer the data into the digital plan of work. So that's got a realistic project team. It's the proper procurement from Faulkner Brown's being the consultant lead through to stage 3, and then Sir Robert McAlpine coming on board. And there was a really nice presentation from Mark McDonald on this at the Institute of Structural Engineering BIM conference earlier in May. So we are looking to make some of these examples sort of free to browse and things, or maybe even toy with the idea of having a a sort of BIM Toolkit competition where people can put their own projects in and share them. You can have a look around and see what's been done. But most of the support at the moment comes in the form of these support areas, which give the theory and some sort of good examples. So there's quite a nice example of the LOD principles for building fabric and services. Further down the page, there's examples for level of information development. Again, for building fabric, for services, in this example, CCTV. So there's quite a lot of support information out there within the site, but we do recognise that we can do more. And example projects is one of the areas that I particularly find could be really interesting. Maybe one more question, Andy?
Okay, considering the authority tools the industry uses only has three levels of detail, how does MBF suggest to overcome this issue within a BIM model?
Okay, I'm going to try and guess a little bit in terms of that question, but I think what that might be referring to is that when you look in terms of geometry in Revit, which is probably the most used modeling tool, they have the different levels of detail that you can change for your families. They coarse, fine, was it medium grain? What we try to do with National BIM Library, which is our free-to-use BIM object, is have different objects that you can use at different stages. So we do have concept objects for things like partitions and ceilings and floors and roofs, which are a very, very basic LOD. Then you can put in more generic objects, so maybe a roof build-up that you know is a green roof, and inside there it reflects the different levels of coarse, grain, fine. And then finally we have manufacturer objects as well, so it's a combination of using the functionality in the leading BIM tools out there, but also swapping objects as you know you need to go from concept to developed to specific manufacturer objects. So if you did know that you were going to use a green roof from Renolit, you can see there we've got 3 different green roof build-ups. And inside there, for this particular example, we have different platforms. And it's not just the geometry, which is the different width of all these different layers, but you've also got the different property sets inside there as well. So it is a challenge for industry, having good quality BIM objects, good quality templates for specifications as well. And at MBS, in parallel to the work we've done that's free to use with the BIM Toolkit, we're really pushing on with the National BIM Library, which is free to use BIM objects, and also our MBS Create specification package, which is a subscription package. You have to pay for it because we have to maintain the data and improve the software. But we'd like to think that at MBS, with National BIM Library and MBS Create, we can offer services that really help the industry do the nitty-gritty and deliver to the level 2 BIM standards and process.
Great stuff. Well, look, Steve, thank you very much. I mean, I think we could have gone on for another half an hour, but we got, like you said, we got. No doubt everyone's got to get on now. But yeah, thanks very much. That was really good, and I have to say that it was like one of the best attended webinars we've done. So great stuff. And is any final points or takeaways that you'd like to give people out there?
No, I'd just like to finish by maybe thanking everybody for attending and not going for a lunch break, spending their time listening to what I've had to say. Maybe just encourage people to have a little look at the BIM Toolkit and see what it can offer them. It's originally funded by industry through the funding period. It's free to use. It's there to help people work with BIM, and there's benefits there no matter who you are in the industry, whether you're a client or an asset manager, whether you work design management, or whether you're a construction manufacturer wanting to expose your content to the industry. I think there is something there for everyone, and please go away, have a look at the toolkit. If anyone's on social media, the hashtag's hashtag BIM Toolkit, I'll maybe have a look to see if anyone sent any tweets out and engage a little bit over social media. But no, thanks everybody for sitting and watching the presentation.
Great, sir. Thanks very much, Steve, and thanks for everyone again. And more information will be out in the future for the next BIM webinar, which is with the Malcolm Taylor, the information manager over at Crossrail. But thanks, Steve, again. That was really great, informative webinar, and thanks everyone to taking your time in your lunchtime. So thanks very much, and we're signing off now. Cheers.